Okay. Thank you for joining today. It is August the 18th at 5 Central, and we're going to be going over keeping track of the team. This is part 3. Sections that we'll include today are collaborating with stakeholders, mentoring relevant stakeholders, and applying emotional intelligence to promote team performance. So with that, the project success depends on engagement and appropriate collaboration. The more collaboration and alignment, the better ability for the project to deliver value and progress towards those ends. Working collaboratively requires constant effort and balance. The tighter the collaboration, the more aligned and accurate the deliverable. Steve, can you mute, please? Thank you. Steve Gordon, please mute. So let's look at the enablers, deliverables, and tools. Evaluate engagement needs from stakeholders. Optimize alignment between stakeholder needs, expectations, and project objectives. Build trust and influence stakeholders to accomplish project objectives. Following deliverables and tools are relevant to enablers addressed on the list. Some of these might be covered in detail in other sections of the course. We've got stakeholder registers, engagement plans, and then those specific tools in general. Let me get rid of this thing here. It's in the way. Let me get rid of that thing. It's in the way. Effective collaboration builds trust between all parties, and the open dialogue and meaningful communication optimizes the understanding of aims as well as the expectations of the results and what needs to be done in order to realize those expectations. Everyone's involvement and engagement in a project may fluctuate or remain constant. That level of engagement is evaluated and reevaluated throughout the project. Keeping discussions transparent ensures appropriate stakeholders are knowledgeable and expectations are set. So engagements include communication skills, interpersonal skills, feedback, meeting management. There's an interesting one that we're going to talk about. How to have successful meetings. PMI tells us how to do that. Among other management skills, they're all leveraged to manage the feedback loop and engagement between stakeholders. So what are the project stakeholders? They can be involved in various levels of a project and can have partial oversight of a project. Examples include customers and suppliers, end users, the government, employees, managers, sponsors. Stakeholders are those who may affect or be affected by a decision, activity, deliverable, or outcome of a project. It's important to understand that project stakeholders are always emerging through a project lifecycle. As new requirements are added and as project constraints change, new stakeholders will emerge, and it is your job to make sure they are identified as early as possible. Anyone have an example of when a stakeholder may be added? Anything in your project happen? Stakeholders are set at the beginning, and maybe something was added later.
Yeah, maybe a new deliverable was added through.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Anything else? Yeah, requirements could change. Yeah, we talked about it, I think, the last time we met. There's just things that happen, right? You've got things that you got to overcome. As you look at the end of a phase, you look at, the deliverable, you get to the next portion of a project, things change. You got to make sure that you engage other people. And there's also people, the politicking that we talked about last time, right? It's just making sure that you know who needs to know what's going on with the project, right? So, stakeholder identification. Stakeholders should be identified early in the project so that their needs and expectations can be met. And it's something that's going to be iterative. They're going to be added, they may be removed later. Well, especially when you got reorgs like we have, right? Stakeholders could change just because roles and responsibilities have moved. They're also people best able to help projects succeed as they have a specific interest in the project objectives and its success. Identifying project stakeholders is performed regularly throughout the project lifecycle. It's done by analyzing and documenting relevant information regarding their interest, involvement, interdependencies, influence, and potential impact of project success. Identifying and revising your assessment of a project stakeholder can be accomplished in a variety of ways. Here are a few tools and techniques that can be used. Expert judgment. So expert judgment is used to help identify stakeholders, can be obtained from senior management, identified key stakeholders, project managers, SMEs, industry groups. This is your expert judgment, right? This is you just knowing who you need to be engaged, right? Data gathering, questionnaires and surveys, and brainstorming is another way where you can understand, right? We get the project, you know, I've had a couple projects here lately that I said, okay, who do I need to have on this thing? I have never done this. We've never done this. Who should we engage in this project? And then what happens generally is after that first brainstorming session, your next call is 100 times larger in participants. And then by the time you work through it, half of those people realize that they don't have any value add or any need, and then it reduces to your workable team. Data analysis. As stated in PMBOK, stakeholder analysis is a technique of systematically gathering and analyzing quantitative and qualitative information to determine whose interests should be taken into account. So you've got stakeholder analysis and document analysis. Another one is data representation. Oh, wait, we're somewhere else. Look at this. I jumped here. Pardon me for 1 second, please. While I get my bearings right. Okay, there we go. So stakeholder mapping and representation is a technique that can be used to categorize stakeholders. And I've got some samples of what these things look like. We'll go over here in a second, right? What it does is common methods might include two-dimensional grids of classification models that enable you to group stakeholders based on two factors. Some might be a power interest grid, a power influence grid, impact influence grid. We've got stakeholder cubes, which is a three-dimensional classification model, and directions of influence. We'll go over that when I've got a sample of that as well. And then using meetings. As stating in the PMBOK guide, a meeting is a gathering of people for a business purpose. So here's some examples. What happens is you find a name, or when you're hunting for people, right, you're looking at these X and Y axis of, you know, interest and power. So based on whoever's name and what their role is, you may place their name or their dot or their identifier in a particular group here, and that may determine how you engage with them or what communication technique you use with them. So this here is the power interest grid. So you've got actively consult, regularly engage. So if it's a high power but low interest, you actively consult. You know, they have a low power and low interest, just keep them informed. This is how you read this. High power, high interest is that they're regularly engaged. They're active people on your calls. If they have a low interest, a high interest, and low power, they just want to maintain their interest. That's all. The other one here is the power influence grid. So this is power and influence. If they have high power and high influence, you want to manage them closely, right? If they have high power but low influence, just keep them happy, keep them satisfied, right? These are folks that have a lot of power, but, you know, again, they just, I don't know, they've got other stuff going on maybe. Low power, low interest, just keep an eye on it. High influence, but low power, just keep them informed. Another one is the influence impact grid. Again, you guys get it, right? This is what these grids are. You want to take a look, and you want to know how, this is just a way to quantify or qualify how you might need to engage certain folks in certain times and special calls or whatever you guys decide to do. Your call. This direction of influence here is another consideration that they discussed in that the group stakeholders on how they influence a project. So upwards, you've got managing sponsors. Downward is the project team and the SMEs. Sideways is other PMs. Outward is with your suppliers and vendors and everything else here. So again, guys, these are just tools. Remember, PMBOK and a la carte. What tools? They provide the tools, and here in the next iteration of the PMBOK guide, they provide the concepts that we use to be successful as PMs. You may use none or all of these. Just know what they are. And you can picture these things, you know, again, it's a grid, it's a power interest. Think of X and Y axis, okay? All right, so Stakeholder Register. Stakeholder involvement and management is often documented in a register. The Stakeholder Register is a project document including the identification, assessment, and classification of project stakeholders. Some registers may include additional information, such as the potential influence over the project or a particular phase, and then the classification. what I did was provided an example here of what a stakeholder register is. Again, this gives us our visual representation that maybe help us, recall this if it's needed on the exam or if it's needed just in your general work. You got the person's name. This is the stakeholder. What organization are they in? Their role, their major requirements. What are their expectations? Again, this is what is their influence, right? Their role may also be, somewhere in here, their influence may be power influence grid, or, influence, in whatever that other grid was that we talked about here, the influence and impact, power and interest. So this is this way you track that. What's their influence? What's their area of interest? Is it internal or external? Are they internal or external? And are they a supporter? Right. Sometimes these no supporters may create its own activity, right? I've heard stories where you need someone to be engaged in this, and that's where the politicking comes in, and where your ability to network and your ability to influence comes in, right? As a project manager, you need to be engaged in this, and here's why. So, but you want to know right away, are they a supporter or no? There have been times where people don't want you to be doing this, right? I use the example of my Six Sigma projects. There's managers that don't want me there because I'm taking time away from their people, from doing work that I'm using air quotes, supposed to be doing. Well, the process improvement is important, and I'm a black belt, and my role here is to improve something that your leadership has stated as a defect. I need you to be supportive. That's an example. Any other examples? Does anyone use stakeholder registers or anything like this here to any stories on how you've engaged your stakeholders at this point for any of your projects? Anything that we've talked about here seem interesting as far as something you might use later?
Hey, Will, I have a question. How would you identify? I've seen the registers, but I've never seen the expectations added. How would you identify or get to that information?
I think it's just asking them, what are your expectations of the project? What are your expectations here? Right? I wish I had an example. I don't use this particular template, but all of this, generally, I think in the real world, what happens is, you identify, you brainstorm with folks, you use your subject, you use your experience, and you say, here's who I need to get on a call. You get that group together, and you brainstorm and get more folks, and then you just go over stuff. What are your expectations here of this project? Like the example here would be the project manager wants the project to go as planned. There's mortgage lenders that want growth. That's what they're interested in, is growth. Capacity planning, maybe. Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I see what you're saying now. I get you. I was looking at it from a different lens, but now I get this now.
Yeah. I think that was a great question, though, and I think their expectations would be, what lens are they looking through? Maybe that would be a word. What lens are they viewing this project through? I just ask them. That's the real world. I just ask, what are you guys looking for here? So, good question, Jamel. Thank you.
Yeah, I get it, because you know what, most people once they get on your calls, they're very clear about their what and their why. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So they're very expressive about what they need out of the project, because time is very critical. Everybody has a ton of meetings and a ton of projects, and once you ask them to get on these calls, especially for people that are invited to the calls by somebody else, they are very upfront with you about, what they need out of the deal.
That's right. And sometimes their interests can shape the call, or it can influence how often they participate. If you're not, if you've got capacity planning that is concerned about, their expectations are that we're, meeting the capacity requirements in the network or whatever it is in the database or whatever, and you're not talking about it, well, they're going to quit joining. It's that simple. If they're not getting any value out of the call, they're not going to be there. So it's important to know what lens. Great points, Jamil. Great points.
Thanks.
Any other comments there? Okay. All right, let's continue. Collaboration activities. Stakeholders collaborate every day in a project. Some stakeholders can be engaged less frequently, some more. The frequency of engagement is based on the mutual needs and expectations. nearly constant engagement among the core project team is common, right? Those are our weekly or maybe our daily stand-ups if you're agile. Those are very, very frequent, but you may have less frequent opportunities with, higher levels of leadership. Encouraging regular collaboration can be supported by, daily stand-ups and co-locating teams near each other. More infrequent collaboration can be supported by scheduled sessions, such as milestone reviews or backlog grooming sessions. This is very agile in some of the terms that they're discussing here, but it's more of, again, what lens. Not everybody needs to be on every call. You have folks that need to meet regularly. You have folks that, we regularly have AVP calls or VP calls, and they want to know very specific things, not the gory details of what's going on, but where are they at with critical milestones. It's the project manager's job to understand how to do that and understand those expectations. Guidelines for facilitating a meeting. That's awesome. This brings, anybody seen that? I don't know if it's a YouTube video or if it was a Facebook thing or a LinkedIn thing where this guy it was a conference call, and it's how a typical conference call goes, and somebody dials in, and then one guy, everybody joins, and then they start talking, and then more people join, and then the dog's barking, and then all this stuff happens. Anybody seen that video? Nobody?
The funny version of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're imitating a conference call, but with
that's right.
People. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because some of it's so true. The guy's still talking, and he's actually outside on the other side of the wall, so he dropped his call. He didn't know it. It was just super funny. All right, so guidelines. We're going to give you some guidelines. Oh, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, nothing.
Okay,
I was just agreeing.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there may be a little bit of a delay in our line, so I apologize for that. I didn't mean to speak over you. So guidelines for facilitating a meeting. Let's see what the PMBOK has to say. Meetings are quintessential to almost every project. Guidelines for facilitating a meeting are as follows. Making certain that the meetings are appropriate to the stakeholders' engagement in the project. Appropriateness is determined in an array of variables, such as, but not limited to, timing, context, stakeholders' experiences, knowledge, input, location, technology, urgency. Set and distribute an agenda prior to the meeting start. Projects are managed with a sense of urgency. Meetings should support that sense of urgency by starting promptly. Review the agenda set prior to the meeting and make amends as stakeholders deem necessary. Allow others to speak and share as appropriate. Take notes or record the meeting with permission. Keep the meeting discussions on topic. Save outside discussions for after the meeting or for another scheduled meeting with appropriate stakeholders. Recap the meeting and any action items follow the meeting. Thank everyone for attending. Adjourn the meeting with scheduled time or earlier, and distribute the meeting notes recording as agreed. There must be some common examples, common stories. Or maybe there's some really bad ones. Let's hear, without names, let's hear some experiences with calls relative to how PMI tells us to have a conference call. What do we find most of our challenges? If nobody speaks up, I don't believe it. You're all on conference calls all day.
Sometimes getting done on time, right? Being able to hold to that hour or 30 minutes. Like today, we went over 18 minutes. Come on, people. I'm supposed to be on another call, right? The back-to-back calls.
It's a great one. Good, Tina. Thank you. That was a really great one. Anything else? Come on.
Like when people try to reorganize your agenda and talk about topics before you're ready to address them. But I always try to put them on target or on track with what my agenda is.
I love it. Good one.
People going on in tangents.
There's a good one. Anything else? Anything else that we've, what I've tried to do here, and I've made it a goal of mine for this year, is to quit scheduling 1-hour calls. And what I'm finding through my own experience is when I schedule a half-hour call, right away, people are like, holy crap, we don't have a lot of time to be going over a bunch of other stuff. We need to stay on focus. So I go through things. It's actually working where we would generally schedule a 1-hour call for every project. What I've been able to do is I've created a little mini program for something that's happening in a common location. I'm able to cover 5 projects in a half hour. Now, that's not common, but man, is it awesome. And the participation is great because everybody's like, I don't have 5 hours of call with this guy. I have a half-hour call for all of his, for a lot of his stuff. It's worked for me. Has anybody else tried that this year with success or maybe not success?
This is Jamel. I only schedule half-hour calls. I don't have an hour call on my agenda for any project, period.
Right. Because
of that reason, people do not want to. They really want quick hits. They want high level. They want you to have your stuff together. They want you to respect their time, and they want you to get in and get it done. So half-hour agendas for me all the way around.
Nice. Nice. Does anyone use a scribe?
It never works.
Go ahead. Really? Okay.
They strive for 45, you know, and that's like, oh, that's great. Let's strive for 45. You can never get to 45 because it was just too much sometimes. I mean,
got it.
Other meetings, it's like, well, we really need this one person, and this one person has their own time zone. So they're always like 10 minutes late or something, and then but what about this and what about that? And it's like, okay, that's not what's on the agenda. Let's not talk about that. But it's like, they're a director, so you can't really like say, let's focus on this other thing. So I've tried. I think what I have found successful is when they schedule 50 to 55-minute calls. I don't know why that tends to work because they'll give you the first 5 minutes so that you can go ahead and be late because you're usually on a call, you know, till the top of the hour. And then, okay, we're going to start 5 minutes after. Okay, and then they go right into it, and then like, okay, and then they just control it. So I don't know what the difference is with that, the numbering.
Okay.
But it tends to work.
Nice. Okay, that's a good one. All right. All right, good stuff. Hey, does anyone use a scribe regularly? Someone else to take their minutes? I want to. I'm just unsuccessful with it. And I kind of feel bad. Depending upon the content, I kind of feel bad asking someone else to take notes. But if it's something critical, something, you know, that I really need to be focused and engaged, I will. But as nice as it would be, I tend to take my own minutes. Anybody else have the luxury of a scribe?
I do not, but I wish I had that luxury because it's very hard for me to focus on paying attention to people when they talk and be fully engaged and present in the conversation, capture the notes, and ask the questions and redirect the conversation and keep people focused. That's a lot to do in one transaction.
I agree, Jamel. True.
It's very, so that means that once my calls are over, man, I'm scribing like nobody's business. Like that after my calls end, I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not doing nothing. I have to do a data dump. And so I can get everything on paper. And I can't seem to do it like I see other project managers do it on screen. And they just take those notes right there on the screen. But I can't seem to get that done. And maybe it's because my project hasn't had, we're just building in some cadence. So maybe that's the reason why. But yeah, if I had a scribe, man, that would be so great.
I hear you. Yeah, I'd like to have someone take care of all of my administrative responsibilities. I just want to keep a project on track. I don't want to do any of the admin stuff. All right, so thank you guys. Thank you for your engagement as well, everybody. This is really great. Helps me feel better and it helps time go. So let's talk about the stakeholder engagement plan. It's a component of project management plan that identifies the strategies and actions required to promote productive involvement of stakeholders in project or program decision making and execution. Keeping stakeholders engaged is crucial to the success of your project. With their support, you can determine a project's requirements quicker and know they are accurate. Where am I at? So document stakeholder engagement plan provides a clear, actionable plan that can be used with interacting. Documents how the project will interact with the identified stakeholders throughout the life of the project, and then it identifies the management strategies required for effective management. So let's take a look at the guidelines to developing a stakeholder engagement plan. So developing, executing. So review the project management plan for information such as life cycle selected for the project, description of how work will be executed, description of how resource requirements will be met, how changes will be monitored and controlled, and the need and techniques for communicating among stakeholders. Remember when we talked about, it was actually when we recapped the last time we all met, we talked about that formula that I gave you, n times n minus 1 divided by 2 equals the amount of communication channels you have. N equals is the number of people you have in your project. Remember how it grows exponentially. So having that plan together and understanding when to engage folks and how that's going to work is really important and really helpful and beneficial. So review the stakeholder register for information needed to plan appropriate ways to engage. Review the organizational structure and political climate to help determine the best options to support a better adaptive process for engagement. Reviewing lessons learned database and historical information. Using expert judgment to decide how the level of engagement required at each stage of the project from each stakeholder. Hold meetings with experts and project team to define the required engagement levels of all stakeholders. Use analytical techniques to classify the level of engagement for stakeholders, and then document the stakeholder engagement plan. Oh my gosh, guys, this is the end of the first one. Wow. Okay, so hey, here's some questions. Oh, where am I? Wait. Oh, I got some questions. Hold on. All right, let's do this. Okay. Here's what I'm going to. Oh, shoot! I gave the answer away. Hope you didn't see that. Okay, so collaborating with stakeholders. So here's the scenario. You work for a small development company that builds homes for low-income families. The home build program's purpose is to build 2 or 3 bedroom home for each qualifying family. Under the sponsorship of Miss Linda Michaels, your company is getting ready to build a new home for the Andrews family. Family is qualified for the home build program and is next on the list. You've been assigned to manage a project, and the project is named by the address. The project has faced several challenges, including staffing changes and construction problems. Although you have consistently informed stakeholders of all changes by using the protocols outlined in the communication plan, several stakeholders have expressed concern that the project has gotten off track. So here's the question 1. Stakeholders are worried about the current state of the project. How should you handle their concerns? Should you send them an email justifying your position? Should you take corrective action? Conduct a face-to-face meeting with clear agenda targeting their specific concerns, or document lessons learned? How should you handle their concerns about the current state of the project? What do we think? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Three.
3. I was going to say 3.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So 3 is the correct answer. I thought I gave it away whenever I clicked the thing because it started to underline while I was talking. I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, next one, without cheating. Scenario on the right's the same thing, okay? The scenario is always the same over here. So here's question 2. 2 stakeholders are out of town on a business trip and are available sporadically. A third person has an extremely busy schedule and can't squeeze another lengthy meeting into his day. You believe it's important to have regular face-to-face interactions with each stakeholder. How can you accommodate their needs? Choose 2. So let's do this. So you've got 2 stakeholders that are out of town and a third person which is extremely busy and can't squeeze another lengthy meeting in. You believe it's important to have regular face-to-face interactions with each stakeholder. How can you accommodate their needs? Choose 2. What do we think?
1 and 4.
Okay.
Agree.
Anyone? 1 and 4?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There you go. 1 and 4 it is. Listen, look at you guys. Knocking it out of the park. I think this, I don't want to do that one. Okay, so when are lessons learned sessions conducted? At the end of a project? At the end of a phase? Throughout the project in both predictive, iterative, and agile life cycles? Throughout the project and only iterative life cycles? When are lessons learned sessions conducted?
At the end of the project.
Okay. Number 3, we have one for number 3. Throughout the project, we've had at the end of the project, number 1. Any more? I do see when you guys are going through the chat, I can see your answers pop up, by the way, if that's how you're doing it. You can call out as well. So we've got 1, 2, and 3.
3.
Another 3. Okay. Throughout the project in both predictive, iterative, and agile life cycles. Kind of answers everything, right? It is at the end of a phase. It's also at the end of a project, and it's throughout the project. So that might cover everything, right? Okay. All right. So let's get out of this one, back into the other one, and continue moving forward if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Mentoring. Let me get back over here to this one. Mentor relevant stakeholders. Project management is an art and a science. The discipline gets better with practice, learning, and experience. You learn from others every day. You're learning from this course, I hope. Likewise, there are plenty of opportunities for you to share your knowledge and experience with others. So here's some enablers, deliverables and tools. We're looking at allocating the time for ongoing mentoring. This is what enables mentoring relevant stakeholders. Recognize and act on mentoring opportunities. Determine appropriate feedback for effectiveness. The following deliverables and tools are relevant to enablers addressed in this topic. Training and mentoring plan, effective assessment, a training schedule. Some tools include group coaching, teaching and training, facilitating, and transformation skills. Kind of what Crystal and I are doing now, we're feeding forward, taking opportunities not only to meet a bunch of really great people that are soon to be PMPs, but you retain 90% of what you teach. So, we've got a really great opportunity to work with everybody on the call here. So when you guys get PMP certified, when you're done with that, and you take a little break, a little breather, share that new knowledge. Coaching and mentoring. Beyond simply paying it forward, coaching and mentoring others helps them become more proficient team members. More proficient team members makes for a more proficient team. Raising the abilities of a team increases their output and their value. Project management is constantly growing and refining the best practices that makes us all successful. So increasing the knowledge base and the skill sets of all project stakeholders sets us up to be more successful and effective. To contribute to the benefit of better project management knowledge and practice, you must guide, coach, share, and mentor others whenever possible or appropriate. I would almost think that it's kind of an obligation we have as being certified PMPs is to share that, right? You guys heard from someone or took the initiative yourself to take this course because of someone that you spoke with or someone that encouraged you. So time and resources are limited. Therefore, you must make sacrifices in how much and how to mentor others. Even the little things you do every day can have a positive improvement. So transformation skills. Project organization, the business, and the world are constantly changing and evolving. Is there anyone that wants to challenge that? Anyone not experiencing change in general and just about every part of what they do every day? Heads up that there is something very specific to this in the new PMBOK. Again, I talked about how I don't remember exactly what the number is, but the new PMBOK is literally a quarter of the size that it used to be. Very conceptual. Here are concepts in order to be a good project manager. There's actually a very specific section in the concept of being able to adapt to change and being agile. Agile in the sense of learning and adapting and flexing as a project manager. That's how important it is. Everything is changing often. Supporting the transformation that project stakeholders must undergo as they progress from one way of doing things or understanding to another requires patience and compassionate mentoring. This is most noticeable in teams that are transforming from one project manager approach to another. Remember, the skill set you or your project team hold or utilize today may be obsolete or limited tomorrow, especially in a digital world. As listed in the PMBOK guide, 6th edition, common leadership styles that project managers can adapt include transformational, charismatic, transactional, interactional, laissez-faire, and servant leadership. Through the application of these leadership styles, project managers can mentor relevant. Let me give you a heads up. And I don't know if anyone has ever told you this. So here's a question first. In the world of leadership, what is the proper leadership style? Transformation, charismatic, transactional, interactional, laissez-faire, servant. What is the best leadership style?
I agree with you.
Whatever the situation calls for.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect.
Right.
I have a Doctor of Business Administration with specialization in leadership. I can assure you, there is no one best leadership style. There is not. There are still more leadership styles being identified. But let me give you guys a hint. And I'm hoping here soon, maybe towards the end here, we can get someone that most recently passed the PMP exam. When you're sitting for the PMP exam, the PMP, think servant leadership. Think from that lens, and you're going to be very successful in a lot of the questions that you have to answer in the exam, okay? Think servant leadership. I'm not saying that's the best way. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that the PMBOK and the lens that the PMBOK and the questions are framed is through servant leadership. If you understand that and what servant leadership does and how your role as a servant leader affects a project, you're going to be very successful. And at least getting into the right mindset and thinking at things through the right lens, okay? I say that because the last group, the last cohort, we've got a lot of people passing the exam from that cohort. We had the privilege of someone that while they were going through that series that you're going through now, they had already done it once and they passed. So they sat in the session and said, here's some tips. They said, by far, servant leadership is the lens you got to work through. Okay? So there's a little contribution for staying with me today. So through the application of leadership styles, it can be, you can mentor relevant stakeholders using the effective methods. Mentor needs to set aside time to communicate to those they're mentoring during the project and beyond. A leader will recognize and act on opportunities to coach a team member. This is really like one of you all had mentioned, it's very situational. You gotta, again, we're gonna get to emotional intelligence. You're gonna know when you need to talk to folks. Not everybody takes the same style. Some folks need to be very direct. Some you need to be more supportive. Some you need to be more, transformational. I don't know, more interactional. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the person, and it depends on the severity of the item you're addressing. So really, really great answers that you gave me there a second ago there. So thank you. All right. So determining relevant stakeholders. Who is relevant stakeholder to mentor varies from project to project and possibly within a project. Information, lessons, and best practices can be shared in many situations. What is determined is who can benefit from mentoring activities relevant to the process, task, or circumstance. For instance, when refining the backlog, mentoring the product owner on grooming best practices. When onboarding a new project team member, guiding her through the processes used by the team. That's where those things we talked about at the with Jamel, having that process flow. Maybe we have a higher level, a simpler version of this at a highest level through phases. Here's how we get started. You know, think about it from the mindset of someone that doesn't do it every day. How do you step it up and then get to the details later? When a team member must purchase material for a project, showing them the procurement best practices and processes for the organization. Individual mentoring and coaching can come in many forms. The expansive range of project management knowledge, an academic, explicit form and an experience-based tacit form can be passed on onto others in various modes. So process could be encouraging others to take lead on activities. Sharing explicit knowledge with an individual while performing the task is encouraging self-organization and an initiative. Process or task, one-on-one mentoring, facilitating meetings, again, practicing taking on new roles, formal opportunities, transferring skills. This is stuff on one-on-one mentoring, right? You have someone, give it a shot. Allow them to ask questions, allow them to shadow, right? You're giving them that one-on-one opportunity to model your behavior and have them help. And then when you're looking at sharing the explicit knowledge with an individual while performing a task, you know, you look at coaching, facilitating opportunities for others to practice project management skills, coaching an individual with tacit knowledge. Stuff that you know, it's not, we talked about this before, it's not quantifiable, or it's maybe more qualifiable, but it's just one of those things you just know, hey, heads up, here's some things that tend to happen because we've done this a long time. Watch this, watch that. Here's some things to keep an eye on. Passing on and practicing skills, self-organizing teams that coach and mentor each other every day in their work, right? That's all stuff that's going to help here. Mentoring, coaching as a group also occurs while project managers are demonstrating the best means to complete a project management task. All involved in the activity are learning. Project managers can call out and explain what is happening and why. Others in the group can contribute and practice and guide the practice. The entire team learns and grows as a unit. All of the team are relevant stakeholders. Training and sharing plans. When there is a project environment that encourages and values learning and knowledge sharing, all stakeholders gain. Setting aside time for sharing and learning can increase the opportunities to capitalize on mentoring, right? Lessons learned is a great example, something we do throughout the project. Formal or informal plans can be established for training and sharing. Set time during meetings, such as the end or during a project review, can be ideal times to share what has been learned. Retrospectives, again, that's an agile term, and lessons learned sessions can be leveraged to call out successes and failures in the management and operation of a project. In project where the emphasis is on self-organizing and the support of teams, a few minutes every day set aside for mentoring and coaching. Scheduling sessions formalizes the mentoring and coaching. These sessions can be facilitated by anyone. You as a project manager can train others on the project management best practices. A process owner can guide others in the best practices for that process. So like Jamel was talking about earlier, right? She's working on a process and just through the process of creating the process, you become the expert of that process. I mean, when you live it and breathe it and probably dream about it every night, you are in a great position to be able to share that through a lunch and learn, share what's going on and help others understand what's going on. As a matter of fact, you probably have to. That's why you're creating the process, so everyone knows what's going on. Talk about facilitation. Project managers generally take the lead when it comes to facilitating project management activities. My friends kind of tell me that I tend to try to take the lead all the time, but we're all type A. That's what we do, right? Anyone surprised by that is, I don't know. That's what project managers do. Modeling good project facilitation skills is observed and internalized by all. Encouraging participation from stakeholders in the activity builds their knowledge and comprehension. Guiding and offering advice provides relevant feedback. and confidence in what they're doing. Increasing the abilities of all project stakeholders increases the shared understanding and efficiency of project tasks and practices. When all contribute, all gain. Oh, guess what time it is? Do I have any? I don't think I did anything for this one. Okay, here we are, guys. I'm not going to do any questions. These are situational questions that were coming up. I really didn't want to get into that. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on the emotional intelligence part. So you have your choice. We have, I don't know, 29. How many slides did I say we had at the beginning? 39?
I thought you said 43.
43.
Okay. 43. Okay, thank you. So, at least everyone paid attention to that one. So we've got, okay, Mana knew it out. Mana? Is it Mana or Mona?
It's Mona.
Thank you. I had someone on my team years ago that was Mana, but she had 2 N's, so thank you. Break, no break, go ahead and give your thing. If anyone needs to take a break, then if the majority of you want a quick drink or a quick health break, then we'll do that. If not, we'll keep going. But we're getting to, I think probably one of the, thank you. Great. Awesome.
Please.
Awesome. All right, majority rules. If you need to step away, step away. This is really cool stuff that we're getting to. I'm really excited about this. Malna was really on it when she was talking about emotional intelligence, and I'm excited to say that it's time to talk about it. Let's keep going, guys. We've got, I don't know, 15 slides. We'll call it 15 slides. Let's see what we can do here to get through it, get done early. I think I do have some questions at the end of this one. We'll have to see. If they're situational, we won't. If they're multiple choice, then we will. To get anything accomplished in a project, you need people. Every person is different. People act differently in different settings at different times. Being able to read, interact, and sense what people are thinking, feeling, and projecting are powerful aspects of working with people. These people also must work with you. So understanding how others read you is equally important in how you read them. Listen, we talked about this in one of the other sessions that I facilitated. Project management is no longer looking at how much money you spend and how much time it takes to spend it and how far you are in a project. Does anyone want to challenge me on that? I didn't mean to come across as a threat. It was really a question. Guys, there's so much more to project management than maybe what used to be 100 years ago. We've got to work with people, and we need people to work with us. That's why this is so exciting. This is that tacit stuff. This is that stuff, that qualifying stuff that you can't be measured in quantum, right? Through our Amplify or through whatever system we use for our mid-years and our end of year. This is the stuff that you can't measure. This is the stuff that's done by how successful your projects are, right? After you complete projects, you have people. I think one of the analogies is whenever you're done working with people or you're done working with your project, are they laying on the road dead, run over, or are they still walking beside you ready for the next opportunity to work with you as a project team, right? That's the stuff that's really cool and really interesting about project management. A lot of really great, and by the way, new research in project management is around this stuff. And I think that's why the PMBOK has shifted from where they had with 7,000 page PMBOK to, I don't know what it is now, but it's a lot less than, I don't even know if it's 100 anymore. As a matter of fact, maybe close to 100. But it's conceptual now. It's understanding that the business and the leadership is more important, is as important, if not more important, than the technical stuff. Remember that triangle, project manager triangle, talent triangle is what PMI calls it. So I hope you guys are picking up on that, right? It's just exciting to me. Sorry, it's really exciting. I did a lot of research on that, and it's just really cool stuff. So let's look at the enablers. Support and recognize team member growth and development. Assess behavior through the use of personality indicators. Analyze personality indicators and adjust the needs for the needs of the key stakeholders. Let me make one caveat statement here that, and I don't know if it's still this way. I'd have to ask someone that's taken the test more recently than me, right? I did it, 2021? I did it almost 15 years ago. The PMP used to, well, project management in general, used to be based on really, really huge, long projects, huge budgets, long time to get them complete. Think about building a space shuttle, right? That's an analogy that I use. Not all projects are that big, of course, but think about it that way. Then you start thinking about things like, oh my gosh, recognizing team member growth and development and those types of things. We generally don't have that at AT&T, but what you can do is you do have teams that you work with quite regularly and helping to develop them and finding opportunities to understand them. And just, you know, the same thing, you know, my research addressed project management through an informal leadership lens. We're leaders. We lead teams. As a matter of fact, I have reference research where the best way for a leader to become a better leader as they move up the ranks is to give them projects. Lead people that don't have to report to you. If you're able to do that successfully, then research supports and evidences that you're going to be a quite successful leader with people that have to report to you. It's just really interesting stuff they go all throughout. Once you're done with your PMP, go do more research on the soft skills of project managers. And I highly encourage you to look at learning agility and emotional intelligence. Maybe there's something written by me in there. I don't know. We'll see. So let's look at some of the deliverables and tools. Personality profile assessments, communication plans, motivation triggers, performance reports, risks lists, and some of the tools that we use is emotional intelligence, empathy, listening skills, transparency, problem solving, motivational models. This is the soft stuff. Well, Patrick, was it you? I don't remember who it was that was talking about how soft skills. It was one of y'all on here, one of the guys on the call that brought up the soft skills. Who was that? It was on our call.
Might have been me.
I was with you guys.
It might have been me. I don't know, but I've had a rough week, so I can't remember.
Okay. That's okay. Yeah. So, but this is, guys, this is where we're at here. This is what we're talking about with this group here. So keep that mind frame and let's move forward here. So emotional intelligence. An important interpersonal skill of all project managers is emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's abbreviated as EI, emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's also shown in a lot of research that I've looked at as EQ, an emotional quotient. Like IQ is intelligence quotient, then EQ is the emotional version of that. EI helps you understand your emotions and those of others to help minimize conflict. The notion of EI evolved in the 1990s and is now recognized as a key set of personal and interpersonal skills. The personal side includes self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, your ability to motivate yourself. Whereas the interpersonal side includes social skills and empathy. Self-awareness measures how well you know your own emotions in a variety of situations. Self-aware. Self-regulation defines how well you can control these emotions. Motivation, I think I added something here. Let me do this. This is my contribution to this slide. Let me do about it this way. So self-awareness, this is the model from Goldman, and this is the model that seems to be used by PMI, by PMBOK. So it was defined earlier in the 1990s. It was coined, right? The emotional intelligence was coined, and the seminal work was done by others. But Goldman is the one that popularized it in this book, if you guys want to take a look at it. And he defined emotional intelligence as the ability to identify, assess, and control one's own emotions, the emotions of others, and that of groups. He had 5 elements: self-awareness, self-regulation, that's what we just talked about, internal motivation, empathy, and social skill, which, by the way, is why I think they're using this model. And he measured emotional intelligence through a tool that he created called the ESCI, Emotional and Social Competency Inventory. He actually suggests that emotional intelligence is as important, if not more important, than just general intelligence. Your ability, but what is also evidenced is, it's not just how smart you are. It's not your book smarts. It's not only that, right? There's a whole lot of other things that come into play with how effective you are in working through this. And this emotional intelligence is one of those. So being able to read the emotions and feelings of others, as well as recognizing how your emotions and behaviors positively or negatively affect others, is crucial effective management and team performance. I'll tell you what, maybe let's take a couple examples. I have personal experiences with folks that are really strong with emotional intelligence. I think it's most observable through their own self-awareness. How do they react to certain situations and certain people? But are there any examples here? And again, this is just some general examples of people that you've come across, maybe even at AT&T through certain project managers or teams, where you could tell. Does anyone else see it obvious when someone that they're engaging with has stronger emotional intelligence? I guess what I'm asking is, does anyone else see when a person has a higher level of emotional intelligence versus someone that may not have as strong emotional intelligence?
I've seen it when it's lower, and it's definitely a turnoff for the whole project team.
Yeah.
Where they're like, accusatory and just combative, and it's like, look, it's not personal here. This is, we can only do what we can do. And then they start, being just accusing you of trying to sabotage. And you would never think that you would run into that, but there's always a first time. And I've definitely run into it. And it's like, what? So I've seen it less.
Yeah. I wonder if we, go ahead, please. Go ahead, Mona.
Oh, I agree as well. The first thought that came to my mind was when the defense gate comes up, like when they start defending, instead of taking a look at the project or how long it's taking or whatever flaws may have, instead of acknowledging flaws and moving forward, they're becoming more, I think Jessica is the one who said, becoming more combative and like defensive, not in a good way.
Yeah. Those are really great examples. I'm wondering if it's more noticeable when people don't have it. You don't realize it until it's not there. One of those things. Like, oh, everything's going great. And then there's this person like, ooh, that is hostile. Like that's not good. This is going to be a good one here. Yeah. The good stuff. I got a friend that is wanting to get into project management. His emotional intelligence is silly low. It's squash. Like there is no one else but this person. And I'm thinking, man, you're going to have one hell of a time at project management. You're going to have one hell of a time trying to figure out how to do this. You've got to fix that. You got to work on that. By the way, research supports the idea that emotional intelligence can be learned, which is great. It just takes practice. It takes someone saying, hey, can we chat after the call? I didn't like the way you came at me with that. I'm trying not to take it personal, but if you could, if there's any way that we could, figure out how to interact a little bit differently, just hear me out first, and then let's talk about what, maybe that helps that person flip a switch and say, oh my gosh, maybe I do have something to work on, and hopefully it's a person that is willing to work on themselves and not someone that is thinks they're perfect. So I'm sure we all have stories there.
Like adding to that as well would be like placing yourself in their shoes. Maybe they there's a ton happening, maybe they have things going on at the same time, having that one conversation instead of just putting them out in a group setting also will help out. And like you said, if they're willing to work on it, they would, and it would make the project go smoothly. And also it helps out with the norming forming stages of what we previously learned too.
Oh, by the way, another, Mona, thank you. That, what you just said, norming, storming, performing, there's 4 of them. Make sure.
Last one, adjourning?
Yeah.
Adjourning.
Make sure you know that. That is an important item for your exam. Thank you for bringing it. It's not part of this that we're talking about literally right now, but if someone didn't tell you that before, make sure you all know that. That is, and it has come up in the exam. So put a little flag on that page in your pin box. So thank you. I didn't mean to sidetrack there. It just struck me as, oh, here's something you guys need to know. So yeah, guys, I appreciate that. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. Highly recommend you guys continue to take a look at that. And, you know, I don't know, sometimes I brought up the ESCI, the Emotional and Social Competency Inventory. Sometimes what you'll find is some of these things, some of these tests, they used to make us do these tests more in different companies and whatever else. Oh, where are you at with Myers-Briggs and where are you at with that, to see where you're at, what type of a leader are you, what type of a follower are you. Maybe this is one that might be free for us to take, or there may be a free version of it that you can take just to see where your, based on a self-assessment, where your emotional intelligence is on a scale with, you know, similar people or similar roles. And you might say, oh my gosh, I've got an improvement opportunity in this space. So it'd be really interesting to see. Okay, let's keep moving on here. Emotional awareness. Each emotional intelligence skill is made up or influenced by a number of components. So let's take a look at what emotional awareness is. So this is knowing feelings, perceiving connections between feelings and behavior, recognizing how emotions affect performance, being conscious of values and goals. This is what Mona mentioned a second ago, putting yourself in their shoes, right? Seek first to understand, right? That's in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Seek first to understand and then be understood. So where are they coming from? You got accurate self-assessment. So what are your perceived strengths and weaknesses? Become aware of your blind spots and know your emotional triggers. Self-confidence, expressing potentially unpopular opinions, taking risks, displaying poise and self-assurance, having knowledge of self-esteem, proficiencies, and being decisive, even when facing opposition and resistance. So these are the self-awareness elements. So let's look at the self-regulation elements. Being aware of your feelings and what caused them provides a foundation that enables you to manage and channel your emotions in constructive, positive ways, to practice behavior that will strengthen your relationship with your associates in your company. Here are some self-regulation elements. Self-control, right? Remaining cool under pressure, staying focused in stress, controlling rash, destructive emotions, being trustworthy, acknowledging errors, establishing confidence for being honest and credible, standing by principles, and behaving in morally correct ways. You see some of this stuff that many times as we learn, we're like, oh, shoot, we didn't know what to call it. We didn't know exactly what we were observing, but when you see it on paper, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this makes sense. I do recognize people that haven't had this. And that which also means that I can measure it, I can realize it, I can recognize it, which means I also see that people have had a whole lot of this. And where am I at? This is what this is talking about, self. So conscientiousness, having well-ordered, meticulous approach to work, being accountable, satisfying obligations, being adaptable. This is something else that's going to be new in the PMBOK, is our ability to adapt as project manager and adapt the whole team through change, adapting to change events. Look at that. Interpreting events in a flexible way, handling numerous demands and changing priorities. This is also referenced a lot as agility. You're learning agility, your adaptive capacity. Adaptive leadership is something else that I think we practice a lot. Innovation, producing fresh ideas, considering innovative answers to problems, embracing new approaches and possibilities, and looking for new novel ideas. So let's look at motivating events. Motivation is the third EI skill associated with your personal internal abilities. It's about raising your ambition to attain peak performance. So achievement driven. I'm not going to read all these off, guys. This is stuff that's in the PMBOK. Achievement driven, right? Setting tough goals and discovering how to upgrade your capabilities and striving to minimize uncertainty. Your commitment, realizing benefits, sacrificing to fulfill company goals, searching for opportunities to achieve your team's mission. Your initiative, which is cutting through rules to finish a job, working above and beyond. Optimism, hoping to succeed instead of fearing failure, seeing reversals as caused by controllable factors, and working toward goals regardless of barriers. Then we have the empathy elements, which is a critical emotional intelligence skill that profoundly affects your ability to relate to and establish a rapport with others. So we're looking at understanding others, right? Observing emotional cues. This is, some of this stuff here is a little bit different when you're remote. Anybody think that? When you're face-to-face and we're co-located, some of this stuff is pretty easy to see. You can see nonverbal cues. You can see all that stuff. What about on conference calls? We're all remote for the most part right now. And even when we're not remote, the majority of our project teams are not co-located. Anybody think that there's a challenge in today's environment that may be overcome through video calls or, turn your camera on? Any observations there, specifically with some of the stuff that we're talking about when you're trying to observe?
I think it's harder to get people engaged if you can't see them, if they're not talking. I hate the camera, to be honest, but I try to be engaged and pay attention during my calls because that's my job. But I do notice that if you're on camera, people can see if you're distracted or whatever, especially because, you're on the computer and it's like, oh, there's the email icon or there's the queue message icon. And I'm getting distracted from what we're talking about. But it's hard, but I think you can bring people back and be like, ask them direct questions. And that gets them engaged again. But it's a challenge, but I think it's a challenge being in the office too, sometimes with water cooler talk, and you can waste a lot of time there. And, when you're at home, you tend to, all right, well, I got to do this. So you're not as distracted. But getting engaged is more of a challenge. But I don't know, 6 one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. That's great. Yeah, very, very true. So more empathy elements. We've got service orientation, happily providing proper help, seeking strategies to increase customer satisfaction, recognizing consumer needs, developing others, recognizing and rewarding associates' achievements. I think every time I've talked to you guys, we talked about that. Rewarding good work, recognizing people for what they do, especially when they knock it out of the park. Providing helpful criticism, constructive criticism, coaching and mentoring, leveraging diversity. This is something that's a hot topic today, right? Appreciating the various ideologies, creating conditions where different types of groups can thrive, showing consideration for diverse groups, actually encouraging and championing diverse groups, objecting to discrimination and bigotry, right? Political awareness, understanding political truths and realities of companies, recognizing critical social systems, grasping influences that set opinions, and correctly interpreting power connections. So we look at social skill elements that draw on the other 4 emotional intelligence skills to build strong relationships with people and affect change in the organization. We've got communication, managing tough problems directly, effectively exchanging information and cultivating clear communication, and achieving a mutual awareness, building bonds, establishing and maintaining friendly connections with colleagues, keeping others informed, search for mutually rewarding relationships, collaboration and cooperation, fostering an amiable and collaborative environment, recognizing and cultivating options for cooperation, balancing job duties, working together, sharing strategies, knowledge, assets, change catalyst. Again, this change thing comes up. Challenging the current situation to appeal to the need for change, advocating for change, appreciating the importance of change, exhibiting the change anticipated of others. We have conflict management, detecting possible clashes, moving disputes into open and helping to reduce them. Managing difficult individuals and stressful scenarios with finesse and sensitivity. Urging open discussions, engineering a resolution that is advantageous to both sides, mutually beneficial. The influence, which is appealing to listeners by polishing presentations, winning people over skillfully, coordinating impressive events to convincingly sell an idea, building solidarity and approval through intricate strategies, leadership, expressing and stimulating interest for a collective vision and goal, modeling effective leadership, taking on a leadership role based on necessity, regardless of official title, and directing others' performance while maintaining their accountability. Team capabilities, building team character, camaraderie, and dedication, attracting group members into committed and passionate involvement, displaying team characteristics such as civility, supportiveness, and collaboration, and safeguarding the team and its good name. Okay, so let's look at some interpersonal and team skills. The following table describes some of the interpersonal skills that can be helpful in keeping a team on track. Let's do it this way. Is all? Nope. Okay. Active listening, communication technique that involves acknowledging what you hear. I think active listening, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I think that's the thing that I hear the most of. It's being active, clarifying the message to confirm what you heard matches the message that the sender intended. Communication style assessments. It's a technique to identify the preferred communication method, format, and content. Useful technique when stakeholders are less than supportive and you need to ensure that they are engaged. Emotional intelligence, the ability to identify, assess, and manage the personal emotions of oneself and other people, as well as the collective emotions of groups of people. Influencing, the ability to influence people can be a powerful tool when managing a team. Influencing can result in positive outcomes when resolving an issue because you can state a good case and explain why an idea, a decision, or a problem should be handled in a certain way without resistance from other individuals. Motivation. Motivation skills are key in any management role. It's what keeps people involved and wanting to complete excellent work on time. Every team member will be driven by different factors. We're going to go over those here in a little bit. But understanding how these factors can play into team members' motivation will help you provide the support they need while completing project work. Nominal group technique. It's a technique that enhances brainstorming when a voting process used to rank the most useful ideas for further brainstorming or for prioritization. Political awareness, the ability to recognize the power structure internal to the organization and the ability to navigate relationships. This political thing really comes up a lot. Transparency. Project managers earn and sustain trust and confidence from stakeholders by acting in good faith in an open fashion, not withholding or aiming to hide or shield information, errors, praise, or any other aspect of the project. So let's take a look at active listening. Active listening, actually, they're going to go in all of these in detail. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of them, actually. Active listening is a communication technique that involves acknowledging what you hear and clarifying the message to confirm what you heard matches what the sender intended. There are different aspects to active listening that will help you communicate more effectively with your stakeholders. Reflecting, which is repeating the gist of the message, verifying your understanding of the message. Attending, show that you're paying attention to the speaker. You can lean slightly forward into them. Stay at least same eye level and maintain eye contact without staring. Following, which is to demonstrate your understanding of the conversation. To demonstrate the understanding of your conversation, you can respond with a nonverbal gesture, such as nodding your head, or a verbal word or phrase, such as yes, or mm-hmm. You can also ask occasional open questions or provide silent pauses to the speaker so the speaker can collect their thoughts. Is there anything anyone wants to add to this, to active listening? Anything resonate with you on active listening?
Reflecting. Definitely when we're remote, reflecting is definitely helped me to say, okay, so this is what I'm understanding what you said, and then either they'll agree or disagree and clarify. That's the best way for me right now since I'm remote.
Yeah, very nice. And that might be the only way. I mean, you think that's too strong of a statement? Looking at the screen, well, you could say following, you could do, but you can ask questions, right? Certainly can't. The physical part of this, where we know they're listening, is gone. You know, the only way to acknowledge it is for you as a sender to say, can you confirm what I just said? Or you being proactive as a listener saying, hey, let me reflect on this for a second to make sure I get it. That's almost the only way. So that's a great point, Jessica. I hadn't really thought about that till right now.
You can still lean in slightly to the camera. You can still maintain that eye level and the eye contact while you're attending those calls. You just have to do it a little more intentionally. You have to be, because even in interviewing, they tell you have to be a little more intentional when you're doing it and make sure you're really maintaining that eye contact with the camera so that they can see you. So you can do the attending part. As for the following, that's a little harder. Because you have to make sure you're showing it on camera, because not all of your body's there. Asking questions, you can ask those questions, and allowing someone a moment to collect their thoughts. That's harder on the larger calls, because people are going to jump in when they hear quiet pieces, because people are afraid of quiet.
I got a face made for radio. You know that, Jen. So that's why I'm all about the reflecting. I hate turning on the camera, but you're right. You can lean in and stuff, but I find it more difficult, especially for me, because I hate turning on the camera. So because people tend to notice the background, like, oh, what does she have? And I noticed it was our leadership too when Jeff Meckelfresh or Stanky, they do like, the town halls. And I tend to look at the stuff that they have in the background, like, oh, he has guitars. That's neat. That kind of thing. And I'm not focusing on what he's saying. But
blurring it makes it a lot easier for them to not show.
My laptop is broken like that. When I do that, it does the whole TV, the old TVs, the tube TVs that it has the bars go up and down. And I'm not in a hurry to get that fixed.
Awesome. Thank you for your engagement here. I really appreciate that. I hadn't thought about attending, being active on. I guess I do that, but I hadn't really thought about that being attending. So I appreciate that. Thank you for the ad there, Jennifer. Okay, so let's continue on here. How about that? So there's personality profile assessments. Anybody taken any of these? Anybody had any of these? I think Myers-Briggs is probably the most popular one on here. Anybody else had any of the other ones?
Yeah, not lately. Last year. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Someone had mentioned not lately.
Oh, okay, that was me. I was just saying I haven't had a Myers-Briggs in a while, and it came up on another call I was on, and I think that that's not something that our company is any longer providing. We used to be able to do it, you know, but I think that that's no longer part of our, you know, benefit. So I need to kind of look into that because I'd be interested in taking a profile assessment.
You have to take Myers-Briggs in order to get weight loss surgery. So I had to take it a while back, and I am an INFJ, which is very uncommon. But I'm interested in the theory of psychological types by Carl Jung, though.
Yeah, what it is, Carl Jung is generally, I'm reading this, by the way, I don't want to project myself as an expert on this stuff because I'm not, I don't know all these. But Carl Jung is generally credited as the father of these styled type methods. And his theory categorizes people as either introverts or extroverts. So that's where this one's coming in. So Jung theorizes that people experience the world using 4 principal psychological functions: intuition, thinking, sensation, and feeling. And one of these functions is dominant for each person.
Which is funny because now they're saying that there is a third one, which is they're calling it. Now I gotta remember how to say it now. Is a shoot. So it's introvert, extrovert, and they're calling it a ambivert. So
really,
yes. So you're so you're an extrovert when you're needed to be, but you have to have your introverted times away from people to regroup, and that's me. 100%.
So I'm right there with you. I was so happy when I saw that extra category. I'm like, yep, that's me. I hate networking, but you have to at AT&T, right? Yep, I'm totally there with you.
They recently did a Adam Ruins Everything on this specifically because Briggs and Myers, they did take their book based on what Jung did the research on, but it was basically, for lack of a better word, hooey. It wasn't based on anything. They were just, they were not qualified, Briggs and Myers. They just kind of wrote it up and like, hey, let's just do this. Not based on any kind of, you know, science. Anyway.
I think the majority of the times that I've taken these things have always been in the context of understanding and appreciating that people are different. That's it. It didn't really say, I've never had one instance in any time I've ever taken these where they said, you're taking this because we want to create a program around you and your style. It's always been, you're a this for, and and Jennifer's a that for, and Jamil's a this for, and Patrick's a that for, and this. You see, we're all different.
Yeah, but they used to base this stuff on this is what you need to do with your life. Not now, but before.
Sure.
Oh well, you based on your personality type, you need to be like a mechanic or.
I remember that.
Type of
thing.
They did
that for school. What instrument you're supposed to play too in school? Yeah.
Oh yeah, they told me I couldn't be a doctor because of it. Yeah.
Every day.
Well, we can do whatever we want.
That's right.
Oh, that. Yeah.
The funny thing about all of these is what it does. The thing that I think is challenged the most about a lot of these is these are really a snapshot in time. You can adjust. It's like, an extrovert can be an introvert, or an introvert can be an extrovert. You're not always, so they created this other category. We shift and people shift. And, again, I think all of this really in the context of this discussion, in the interest of time here, is just that, people are different. There are ways to measure it in the event that we're like, holy smokes, hey, manager, I really need to get all of my project team to take the Myers-Briggs. That way we can figure out what's going on here. Now, but there is a way to do that. So Yeah, really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. So let's take a look at organizational theory here. Let's shift a little bit. It's a study of how people, teams, and organizations behave. It's used to look for common themes for the purpose of maximizing efficiency and productivity, problem solving, motivating people, and meeting the stakeholder requirements of a project. So let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a popular theory that places the needs of an individual in a pyramid or triangle. The theory states that a lower level need must be satisfied before reaching the highest level that can be addressed, which is self-actualization. Maslow's theory, McGregor's theory X and theory Y is another one. I've got some samples here. Let's do it this way. So here is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs right here, right? You got to have your psychological or physiological needs satisfied before you can before you can feel safe. You have to feel safe before you can feel loved. You have to feel loved before you have self-esteem, and then you have to have self-esteem before you can reach the pinnacle level, which is self-actualization. So theory X and theory Y is really taking a look at things. It applies to the management of labor. This is an older one. I don't remember when that one came out, but theory X states that people generally do not like to work. Look at that face. Like, you know. Theory Y is essentially the opposite. People want to work and enjoy it, and the management does not need to hover and constantly supervise. Theory X is called the old school approach. Theory Y is more modern. So theory X is really the carrot and stick, and theory Y is more of the motivational, kind of where we're at more recently. McClellan's achievement theory, which is this box down here, has three components: achievement, power, affiliation. Achievement relates to success, power to influence of other people, and affiliation to belonging to a team. Herzberg's motivation theory here says that success in the workplace is based upon two elements: hygiene factors and motivating factors. The hygiene factors are merely a launch pad. When damaged or undermined, we have no platform, but in themselves, they don't motivate. These are just a foundation in order to establish the motivation. So let's look at guidelines for building emotional intelligence with key stakeholders. Here's a guideline. So this generally, when you see these guidelines for building, you're at the end of a section if you haven't observed that yet. Here is a guideline to build your emotional intelligence with key stakeholders. Recognize your own emotions and behaviors. Assess how your emotions, attitude, actions, behaviors control you. Observe how your emotions affect those around you. Take note of physical, nonverbal cues of others, such as a shrug or a smile. Interpret those cues against the context, the situation, and your emotions. Remain mindful of the emotions of others. Mirror the behaviors of others when suitable to become better connected, and practice controlling or changing your emotions to better suit the situation. Let me look at something here real quick. I don't remember. Yeah, no, we're not going to do those. Back over here. So let me do this, right? Let's take a couple minutes here. I like doing this with you guys because it's generally successful and I appreciate it. What of the emotional intelligence and of the motivating and of all the theories and everything else that we talked about today, what has resonated with you guys in this last section? Has there been an aha? Has there been something that has resonated in your mind that you'll be able to take away from this? I guess let's specifically talk about the soft skill stuff, the emotional intelligence part of this. Well, silence is time. Speak up. I'm just looking to acknowledge that we were engaged and you guys got something out of this, so help me feel that way, please.
You had asked a question about if we've ever been in a situation where we witnessed that somebody else had more emotional intelligence. And I see it often in my career outside of AT&T. And it's really weird because it does make you reflect a lot. And it makes you even more self-aware, if that makes sense, on how they handle a situation, how they handle adversity in a project or a mission, and how you can do better next time. So like you said, it can be learned. It's ever evolving. And it strengthens you when you're in a new situation. And there are a lot of, in this case, stakeholders that have varying or players that have so many different opinions, and a lot of them with different levels of emotional intelligence and maturity. So they had mentioned, some of the ladies mentioned, people that like to accuse people, like to blame, they like to come out with what they're upset about, what didn't go right, as opposed to being empathetic to knowing that we're all trying to complete this mission together and we all have our roles. So when you're able to consider the other person, consider their circumstances, consider everything they're going through, it makes a big difference. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're watching somebody else, that's either in a higher position, and they don't even have to be. They could be, servitude goes both ways. They can be at a lower rank or a different part of the project, and they can be very stable and very mature when it comes to their emotional intelligence. So when you said that, it just made me consider some things, and that's how we learn, right? So we're able to see a situation. You're not aware of everything until you notice it with somebody else, and then it becomes kind of reflective toward your experiences and what you're trying to accomplish going forward.
Yeah, really nice, Ernest. Thank you for that. The fact of the matter is that as project managers, I don't even know, we manage projects, but I think we do a lot more managing people than managing projects. So it's what we do. So interesting.
I think another thing that resonated with me was when you were talking about mentoring to give back to learn more. So after we were done, to make sure we mentor and continue to give back, we'll continue our education. And I think that was really, really smart, and it resonated with me.
Great. Yeah, it's true. Scientifically proven, you retain 90% of what you teach. And the reason why that happens is because you don't want to come to this thing, or you don't want to talk to someone about a topic and look like a buffoon. You want to at least be prepared and anticipate questions and those types of things. So you do more research when you teach, and you're like, oh, okay, well, and plus the repetition, you're like, oh, okay, I got this. So thank you. I'm glad that resonated with you. Appreciate that. What else do we have, please? So we've talked about emotional intelligence resonated, and recognizing when people have it and don't. It's noticeable. And then we also talked about feeding forward after you guys get PMP. That resonated as helping others, mentor others, and coach others. What else resonated today, please?
And I think with emotional intelligence, if you, I try to keep my cool, and especially when you're kind of dealing with hostile situations or people in meetings where they're just agitated. I try to be empathetic and just let them know I'm, understanding where they're coming from, and I try to put a positive spin on it.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good contribution.
You have to step back and put your own emotions in check, right? So you might be not really happy that they're going off, but you have to kind of maintain your own composure and deal with the situation in a calm fashion, kind of empathetic.
Yeah, that's really great. That's right.
Yeah,
I think a lot. Yeah, go ahead, please.
For me, I feel this whole keeping the team on track module kind of goes back to creating high-performing teams of what we started with, and I'm reflecting for my own self how confused I was when we first started this journey to where we are now. What is it? We have 3 classes left, and how things are coming together. and a lot of the concepts are repetitive, or we're getting more knowledge about it. And the fact that we're working with people, so we have to put the people, the human aspect, in front of it, and to get the project deliverables according to what was written down as like expectations. That's my summary.
That's another good one. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, no, those are good contributions there, and I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody's engagement. It really makes it a whole lot more interesting and a lot more fun when you know the perspectives of other people on the call and what is resonating and what's not, and what are you learning and what are you hearing. You know, you said it, you got 3 classes and I think a close. 3 classes and a close left. So this is the end of this session. I'm not going to go over the learning goals because I think it's just the last 3. This is a slide that repeats. So we covered the last 3 today. Evaluating stakeholder engagement, needs, and influence stakeholders to accomplish tasks are the objectives. Recognize mentoring opportunities and mentor relevant stakeholders, and then promoting team performance through the application of emotional intelligence. Again, to kind of restate some key things we talked about, that forming, storming, norming, performing, make sure you flag that. Make sure you flag servant leadership wherever you see it in the PMBOK. That's key. That mindset is key. Emotional intelligence, I think, goes right along with that, right? So there's your 2 big contributions for today outside of everything else that you learned here. Are there any more questions? Are there any more comments or contributions that we want to make that would add value before I shut off the recording, please? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the recording. That'll formally end the session, and good luck to everybody on the next class. This class, don't hang up yet, though. We'll talk for a second after this. Stopping recording now.